She was a mother, not a mob boss, not a terrorist, not a cartel enforcer. Yet when her face was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, she joined the ranks of America's most dangerous. Her crime wasn't about money, drugs, or power. It was about something far darker, far more intimate, the mysterious disappearance of her own 6-year-old son. And the chase to find her became one of the most bizarre and emotionally charged manhunts the FBI had ever undertaken. For 3 long years, she eluded capture, vanishing across borders, leaving only rumors and shadows in her wake. The FBI, who had caught war criminals and international terrorists, found themselves chasing a suburban mother whose crime cut to the heart of every parent's worst nightmare. How does a woman like that escape the Bureau's grip? And what terrible truth was she running from? The story begins with a little boy named Noel Rodriguez-Alvarez. To the outside world, Noel was like any child his age, playful, innocent, and curious. But behind closed doors, his life was anything but normal. Noel was born with medical conditions that required special care, and he was described by those who knew him as a sweet but vulnerable child. Neighbors remembered his quiet eyes, the way he clung to his siblings, the way he sometimes seemed overlooked in the chaos of a crowded household. And then, one day, he was simply gone. At first, the case didn't sound extraordinary. Families move, children sometimes go to relatives, parents tell stories that don't always match. But in this case, the stories began to unravel almost immediately. Noel's mother, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh, insisted that her son was safe, that he had been sent to live with his biological father in Mexico. It was an explanation that might have satisfied authorities, if anyone had been able to find Noel. But when investigators reached out, the story collapsed. Noel's father was alive, but he hadn't seen his son. He had no idea where Noel was. That was the first red flag. The second was even more chilling. Relatives began to whisper about Cindy's treatment of Noel. They told investigators about neglect, about moments where the boy seemed to be fading before their eyes. There were claims that Cindy had been frustrated with his medical needs, that she resented the attention he required. And then came the most haunting allegation of all, that Noel hadn't been seen for months before Cindy suddenly fled the country with her new husband, Rodriguez-Singh, and 6 of her other children. Noel, they said, had simply vanished from the family. The timeline was disturbing. In late March of 2023, as Easter approached, family members noticed Noel's absence. Cindy's explanations grew inconsistent. To some, she claimed he was with his father. To others, she suggested he was in Mexico with relatives. But no one could provide proof, not a photo, not a video call, not even a passing mention from those who should have known. For investigators, it was like piecing together a puzzle where the central piece, the child himself, was missing entirely. The Texas Rangers got involved. The FBI began watching closely. But before law enforcement could close in, Cindy and her husband made a move that turned a local missing child case into an international manhunt. In the middle of the investigation, the couple boarded a plane. Destination, Turkey. From there, they slipped into India. 6 children traveled with them. Noel did not. For the FBI, that was the turning point. It was no longer just a missing child. It was a suspected cover-up. And as the pieces came together, the Bureau made an unprecedented move. In 2024, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh was officially added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. She was one of only a handful of women ever to appear on that list, and the very first mother accused of concealing the disappearance of her own child. To the agents involved, it wasn't just about Noel anymore. It was about the principle that no one, no matter how ordinary they seemed, could outrun justice. But behind that pursuit, one question remained unanswered. What had happened to Noel? Was he alive somewhere, hidden away, caught in the web of his mother's lies? Or was the truth far darker, buried in secret Cindy carried across the ocean? Agents didn't just want to capture her. They wanted answers. And as they traced her steps from Texas to Turkey to India, the trail grew both colder and stranger. Because Cindy wasn't just running. She was building a life in the shadows. A life where Noel's absence was a silent ghost no one dared to question. And for years, she succeeded. But no fugitive can stay hidden forever. And when the FBI finally closed in, the truth about Noel, or at least, pieces of it, began to emerge in ways no one expected. When Cindy Rodriguez-Singh vanished from Texas, she didn't just disappear quietly. She left behind a mystery, a trail of unanswered questions, and a child-sized hole that haunted every investigator on the case. The FBI doesn't place someone on its 10 most wanted list lightly. That list is reserved for the world's most elusive and dangerous fugitives. Terrorists. Murderers. International gangsters. And yet, a mother from Texas made the cut. To the agents, the reasoning was clear. A 6-year-old boy had vanished under her care. Every excuse she gave had collapsed. Every lead ended in a wall of lies. Cindy wasn't just suspected of foul play, she was actively obstructing the search for her son. But here's where the story took a stranger turn. Once in India, Cindy didn't live like someone on the run. She wasn't hiding in forests or bouncing between safe houses. She wasn't changing her face with disguises or living under new names. No, Cindy lived in plain sight. She and her husband Arshdeep settled among his relatives, blending into the fabric of a large, extended family. To outsiders, she was just another foreign bride adapting to life in Punjab. To the FBI, she was a fugitive, hiding in plain sight, shielded by distance, family, and a wall of cultural complexity. The Bureau's international partners were alerted. India was notified. But extradition, international cooperation, and foreign investigations don't move at the speed of a crime drama. They move slowly, tangled in red tape and bureaucracy. And while the case crawled forward, Cindy appeared to grow comfortable. She attended family gatherings. She was seen shopping. Photos surfaced, ordinary snapshots of a woman who looked more like a stay-at-home mom than a wanted fugitive. But behind that ordinary image, the FBI pressed on. They combed through airport security footage. They mapped out her last days in Texas. And as they did, the picture of Noel's disappearance grew darker. Family members told agents disturbing stories. One relative claimed Cindy had expressed frustration with Noel's health issues. Another recalled moments when the boy had been denied food, punished in ways that seemed cruel for such a fragile child. There were whispers that Noel had not been seen alive for months before Cindy fled. The most haunting testimony came from Cindy's own relatives, who alleged that she had once said Noel was possessed, that he was evil, that his medical struggles were more than she could bear. It wasn't just neglect being suggested anymore, it was something colder, something that made even seasoned investigators feel a chill. And yet, no body was ever found. That became the case's greatest complication. Without Noel, without evidence of where he was, the FBI couldn't definitively prove what Cindy had done. Was he alive, hidden with someone in Mexico, just as Cindy once claimed? Or had something irreversible happened to him before she ever left the United States? The absence of Noel's body became the case's cruelest twist. Cindy's lies ensured that every possibility remained on the table. And that was enough to keep the FBI going, because as long as those questions lingered, the Bureau wasn't chasing just a fugitive. They were chasing the truth. For 3 years, that truth remained buried. Until one day, it didn't. In the spring of 2025, whispers turned into something bigger. A tip surfaced in India. Locals had seen a woman matching Cindy's description. Agents tightened the circle. Surveillance confirmed what many had doubted for years: Cindy had never left. She had been living openly in Punjab, alongside her husband's family, shielded by the very ordinariness of her life. And when the arrest finally came, it was less dramatic than anyone expected. No high-speed chases. No shootouts. Just a quiet apprehension in a foreign land, where the woman once called a suburban mother became the face of one of the FBI's most unusual captures. Cindy Rodriguez-Singh was in custody. But the arrest didn't close the case. It opened a new chapter. Because while the FBI had their fugitive, they still didn't have Noel. And that's where this story takes its sharpest, most painful turn. Investigators believe Noel never made it out of Texas alive. That sometime before Cindy fled, the boy met a fate his mother has yet to reveal. That he may be buried somewhere, his small body concealed in a way that has allowed her to run for years without closure. Some evidence suggests Cindy attempted to cover her tracks, destroying items, altering stories, and manipulating her family into silence. And yet, no one knows for sure. The FBI hopes that with Cindy back in custody, answers will finally come. But will they? Can a woman who spent years evading justice be trusted to tell the truth about her son? Or will Noel's story remain one of the most haunting unsolved pieces of the case? For the FBI, every case is a puzzle, but some puzzles defy the rules. Cindy Rodriguez-Singh was one of those. Agents had spent years chasing killers, fraudsters, and hardened criminals, yet here was a suburban mother who had managed to outthink, outmaneuver, and outweight one of the world's most formidable investigative forces. How had she done it? Psychologists brought in by the Bureau began dissecting her case, attempting to understand her motivations. Was it greed? Fear? Or a darker, more twisted sense of morality, a belief that what she did was justified, or that the world would never understand her choices? Some profiles painted her as meticulous, calculating, and patient. Others suggested a mind that rationalized cruelty, a woman who could compartmentalize a horrific act while presenting a serene, everyday life to those around her. As the FBI's manhunt extended across borders, they found themselves navigating not just legal systems, but cultural and logistical barriers. India is a vast country, with millions of people in urban and rural areas alike. How do you track a fugitive who blends seamlessly into a community, moves freely in family networks, and communicates in ways you can't monitor? It required a mix of old-school detective work and modern technology. Agents coordinated with Interpol, Indian police, and local informants. Every phone call, every travel record, every social media post became a potential clue. And yet, even with resources, every lead seemed to crumble. Cindy's husband and relatives offered stories that didn't always align. Locals described seeing a woman who appeared calm, unbothered, sometimes even worn. If she had committed such a crime, why did she appear so ordinary? It was the ordinary life that made her extraordinary as a fugitive. The FBI had chased monsters, but ordinary people hiding extraordinary crimes, they were far more dangerous, far harder to predict. Then came the breakthrough. A tip from an unexpected source led investigators to a small town in Punjab. Surveillance confirmed the presence of Cindy and her family. Every agent involved knew the gravity of the moment. Years of pursuit had narrowed to hours of preparation. Every step had to be calculated. Any misstep could allow her to vanish again, potentially forever. When they finally approached her residence, Cindy did not resist. She did not flee. She did not plead innocence in the moment. Agents described her as composed, almost serene, as if she had been waiting for this day but never expecting it to arrive in the way it did. But while Cindy was captured, Noel's fate remained the haunting mystery. Investigators pieced together accounts from relatives, neighbors, and digital records. The picture was bleak. Noel had likely suffered neglect, denied food, care, and affection. Psychological evaluations of Cindy's behavior suggested that her mind had rationalized cruelty, convincing herself that the boy's suffering was acceptable, perhaps even deserved. Evidence at the Texas home told a grim story. Agents discovered objects removed or destroyed, potential traces of the boy's presence erased, and, according to reports, areas beneath concrete patios that were searched for human remains. While nothing definitive had yet been recovered, all signs pointed to a tragic end for Noel before Cindy ever left for India. The boy's disappearance was no longer simply a mystery, it was a tragedy whose full scope had been obscured by lies, distance, and time. The FBI now faced the delicate task of extracting the truth from a woman who had spent years perfecting deception. They needed answers for themselves, for the community, and, most importantly, for the child who had disappeared. Agents emphasized that even with a fugitive in custody, the emotional weight of cases like this lingers. The hunt may end, but the consequences of the crime echo far beyond the final arrest. And for the American public, the story has layers that defy easy resolution. Here was a mother, on the FBI's most wanted list, hiding with her other 6 children, a fugitive in plain sight. Behind closed doors, one child was missing, possibly dead, possibly never to be found, and a nation waited for justice. Noel's story, the details of his suffering, and the question of accountability now rested squarely on Cindy Rodriguez-Singh. Every decision, every interview, every confession or denial could bring closure, or deepen the mystery further. The FBI's pursuit had succeeded in capturing her body, but capturing the truth about Noel, that was the real challenge. As Cindy sat in custody, facing charges of capital murder and unlawful flight, the Bureau reflected on a case that would haunt them forever. Not because of the chase, not because of her cleverness, but because of the vulnerability of the victim, a child whose life was stolen, whose absence had driven agents to the limits of patience, strategy, and resolve. And for viewers, the question lingers: how does a mother commit such acts, elude justice for years, and live a seemingly ordinary life while the world searches for answers? The chase is over, but the story, the painful, shocking truth of what happened to Noel, is still unfolding. With Cindy Rodriguez-Singh finally in custody, the next battle began, not in airports, not across continents, but in courtrooms. Prosecutors faced the immense challenge of building a capital murder case without a body. In the law, a child's death can only be proven with evidence, witnesses, or confession. Yet Noel's physical absence made every argument a high-stakes puzzle. The FBI and Texas authorities meticulously compiled every shred of proof they could find: the inconsistent statements, the digital footprints, witness accounts of neglect, and the chilling evidence of a home where Noel had lived, and disappeared. Experts weighed in on her psychological profile, trying to determine if Cindy had planned, rationalized, or acted impulsively. They examined every decision she had made leading up to her flight abroad. For investigators, each detail was a piece of a larger story. They had to answer questions that Americans across the nation were asking: how could a mother, someone society trusts with life itself, betray her own child? Could 6 other children live under the same roof, largely unaware of what had happened to their brother? And most painfully, what truly became of Noel? Public opinion was fierce. Social media erupted with speculation. Some defended Cindy as a troubled woman driven to extremes, citing her struggles with multiple children and complex family dynamics. Others demanded justice, outraged at the idea that a mother could hide a child's disappearance for years while living abroad. The FBI knew they could not control perception, only facts. And the facts pointed to one chilling reality: Noel's disappearance had likely ended in tragedy, and the responsibility lay squarely with the mother who had fled the country. Yet even in the face of overwhelming evidence, legal experts warned that prosecuting this case would be complicated. The absence of a body could create doubts in a jury's mind. Defense attorneys would undoubtedly exploit inconsistencies, question witness credibility, and suggest alternative explanations for Noel's disappearance. The FBI's work didn't end with the arrest; it extended into a courtroom battle where every detail, every narrative thread, could determine whether justice was served. For the FBI, the case of Cindy Rodriguez-Singh is now etched into memory, not because it was simple, but because it was anything but. Agents reflect on the extraordinary challenges: a mother who defied expectations, a fugitive who used the ordinary as camouflage, a boy who vanished under suspicious circumstances, and a global hunt that spanned continents. Noel Rodriguez-Alvarez's fate remains the heart of the story. Evidence suggests he likely died before his mother fled, but with no body recovered, the full truth is shrouded in uncertainty. For the 6 siblings who traveled with Cindy, the story is even more complicated. they carry fragments of memory, moments of confusion, perhaps even guilt and fear imposed by a mother whose life was a careful web of secrecy. The psychological toll on investigators has been profound. They chased not just a fugitive, but a story of betrayal, grief, and tragedy. They grappled with the tension between justice and closure, understanding that capturing Cindy was one milestone, discovering the truth of Noel's life and death is another entirely. For the public, the arrest may feel like the conclusion. Yet in reality, it's a beginning. A mother faces trial for one of the most shocking crimes in recent U.S. history. A community struggles with the idea that the unimaginable can happen in ordinary homes, and the world wonders how someone can hide the truth for so long. And so the story lingers. It is a cautionary tale, a tragedy, and a mystery all at once. The FBI captured the fugitive, but the memory of a little boy, stolen from the life he should have known, haunts every step of the investigation. The questions remain, the court proceedings will continue, and the truth of Noel's short life, and the choices that led to it, may never fully leave the minds of those who followed the chase, every detail recorded in the annals of one of America's most extraordinary manhunts.